Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she pulled open the glove compartment of her husband Daniel's car. It wasn't intentional. She wasn't snooping or searching for anything in particular. But the small black phone wedged between a stack of old receipts and a pack of gum caught her eye. At first she thought nothing of it, assuming it might be one of the phones he had replaced over time. But then curiosity gnawed at her. The phone was fully charged, a small green light flickering on the side. She had never seen it before. Daniel had always been a bit secretive about his gadgets. He was the type to keep things tucked away in random places, an old habit from when he worked in tech. She'd long ago stopped questioning it, chalking it up to his meticulous nature. But today, as she held the phone in her hands, an unsettling feeling washed over her. Why was it hidden here, in the glove compartment of all places? She pressed the power button and watched the screen light up. Immediately, several unread messages popped up, each one more alarming than the last. The words blurred in her mind as she scanned them quickly, but one line stood out, as clear and piercing as a dagger. "I miss you. Can't wait for our weekend together. I need you tonight." Her breath caught in her throat. She read it again. Her heart hammered in her chest, and she felt as if the air around her had thickened, trapping her in the suffocating weight of the message. Weekend together? Need you tonight? The words were intimate, almost too intimate. Emma's mind reeled. Who was this woman? And why was she sending such messages to her husband? She wasn't an overly suspicious person, but something in her gut told her this was far more than just a harmless flirtation. She scrolled through the rest of the messages, her stomach sinking deeper with each new revelation. The texts were constant, sent at all hours of the day, detailing plans to meet up, suggesting private locations, and sharing moments of passion. But there was something more, something darker beneath the surface. A message sent earlier that afternoon caught her eye. "I'm scared, but I'll do whatever it takes to be with you. I think they're watching me." The words sent a chill down her spine. Watching her. Who was they? Emma's mind raced. She couldn't make sense of it. The affair, if that's what it was complicated, secretive, full of coded language and hidden fears. The woman wasn't just in love with Daniel. There was something deeper, something dangerous about her involvement. And Emma had no idea how far that danger could reach. Her hand hovered over the phone screen, hesitating. She wasn't sure what she was searching for, or if she even wanted to know the full truth. If Daniel was really having an affair, then there was no telling how deep this betrayal ran. The thought of it made her sick to her stomach. Her entire world, the life they had built together, suddenly felt fragile, like it could shatter at the slightest touch. Emma's mind flickered back to the last few months. Daniel had been distant, quiet during dinners, often staring at his phone or working late at the office. He'd said it was just stress from a big project, and she'd believed him. She had no reason not to. Daniel was a good man, a loyal husband, or so she had thought. But now, reading these messages, the doubt crept in. She couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling at the back of her mind that had been there for weeks, maybe even months. Was he truly faithful to her? Or had she been living a lie? She sat there for a long moment, the phone in her hand still buzzing with incoming messages. Her fingers twitched, tempted to open more, to dig deeper, to find out everything she could about this woman, about Daniel's secret life. But what if she uncovered more than she could handle? What if it all came crashing down? Her chest tightened and she closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe slowly. She couldn't think clearly. She needed to step away, to process what she'd found. But even as she tried to calm herself, her thoughts spiraled. She wanted to confront him, to demand the truth. But what if he denied it? What if she was wrong? She wasn't sure if she could bear the possibility that she was imagining things, if she accused him without proof. And then there was the fear of what might happen next. Confronting Daniel would undoubtedly change everything. But if she didn't confront him, if she just buried the truth, could she ever trust him again? Could she ever trust herself? Her eyes flitted back to the phone, the glowing screen a harsh reminder of the secret that had been lurking beneath the surface of her marriage. She could feel her pulse pounding in her ears, a mixture of anger, betrayal, and confusion. She had to do something. But what? Just as she was about to reach for her purse to leave, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The notification was a message from Daniel. She didn't even need to look at the screen to know what it was about. She'd seen his name pop up on her phone countless times before. A simple text message. "I'm on my way home. See you soon." The timing felt like a cruel twist of fate. Emma knew that he would be walking through the door any minute, acting as if nothing was wrong. He'd never know what she had found. Would she tell him? Would she confront him in the moment? Or would she hold on to the secret a little longer, trying to piece together the puzzle before making a decision? Her hand hovered over the phone again. She could still feel the weight of the message from the woman echoing in her mind. "I need you tonight." Suddenly, everything felt so clear. Emma wasn't just fighting for the truth. She was fighting for herself. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, the dim glow of the hidden phone casting eerie shadows across the room. She had spent the last hour scrolling through its contents, each new message solidifying the growing pit of dread in her stomach. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. This was something much deeper, much more deliberate. The messages between Daniel and the unknown woman, Alicia, spanned months. Some of them were flirty, filled with pet names and inside jokes that made Emma's skin crawl. Others were more intense, secret rendezvous, desperate apologies for missed meetings, and cryptic messages that hinted at something far more dangerous than an affair. "We have to be more careful. I think someone is on to us. I hate sneaking around, but you know we don't have a choice." Emma's fingers tightened around the phone. Was this about her? Had Daniel suspected she might find out? Or was there someone else involved, someone who really knew what he was up to? The sound of the garage door opening sent her heart into overdrive. She locked the phone and quickly placed it back into the glove compartment, ensuring it looked undisturbed before rushing back inside. Moments later, Daniel walked through the door, loosening his tie as he gave her a tired smile. "Hey, babe. Long day." He sighed, dropping his bag on the kitchen counter before pulling out his phone. His real phone, the one he always used in front of her. Emma forced a smile, her mind racing. "Yeah, same here." She watched him carefully, looking for any sign of guilt. Had he been with her tonight? Had he received any messages from Alicia in the past hour? But Daniel was unreadable, slipping into his usual routine as if nothing had changed. For the next few days, Emma paid close attention to everything. The inconsistencies in his behavior became impossible to ignore. He started working late more frequently, always with a flimsy excuse. He was more protective of his phone, turning the screen away from her when he texted. His cologne lingered stronger on his clothes when he got home, like he had refreshed it before walking through the door. And the biggest red flag? He had stopped initiating intimacy altogether. It wasn't immediate, but as Emma watched him, a pattern emerged. He was always distracted, lost in thought, checking his phone when he thought she wasn't looking. He was there, physically, but mentally, he was somewhere else entirely. One evening, Emma sat across from Rachel at their favorite coffee shop, stirring her drink absent-mindedly as she debated whether to tell her. Rachel had always been blunt, the type of friend who didn't sugarcoat things. If anyone could help her make sense of this, it was her. "I found a phone," Emma blurted out, "in Daniel's car, and the messages, Rachel, they're bad, like really bad." Rachel's eyes widened. "What do you mean bad? He's cheating?" Emma swallowed hard. "I think so. The messages are intimate, but there's something more. Something secretive. They talk like they're being watched. like they're hiding from someone else. Rachel sat back, crossing her arms. Okay, you need to confront him immediately. Emma let out a humorless laugh. And say what? Hey, I was snooping in your car and found your burner phone. Mind explaining why another woman is texting you about secret meetings? Rachel narrowed her eyes. Damn right you say that. Emma, this isn't just about cheating anymore. If there's something dangerous going on, you need to get ahead of it. Emma bit her lip. That was the part that scared her the most. What if this wasn't just an affair? What if Daniel was involved in something much, much worse? Rachel leaned forward, lowering her voice. Listen, you have two options. You can confront him right now, demand the truth, and see how he reacts. Or you can wait, dig deeper, get proof that he can't talk his way out of. Emma exhaled sharply. She wanted to confront him. She wanted to scream, throw the phone in his face, demand to know why. But she also knew that Daniel was smart, too smart. If she accused him without undeniable evidence, he would lie, twist the truth, and make her feel like she was overreacting. She needed more. I'll wait, she finally said. Just a little longer. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. Then you need to be careful. If he's keeping secrets, he might be watching you just as much as you're watching him. The thought sent a chill down Emma's spine. That night, as Daniel lay asleep beside her, Emma reached for her phone and did something she had never imagined doing in her marriage. She installed a tracker on his car. And then she waited. Emma had never seen herself as the kind of woman who would spy on her husband. But here she was, sitting in her car outside a dimly lit bar, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The tracker she had installed on Daniel's car had led her here. It had started with small, seemingly harmless discoveries, late-night drives to unfamiliar locations, short stops in places that had no clear connection to work. But tonight was different. Tonight, he had parked behind a bar on the other side of town where no one would recognize him, and he wasn't alone. Through the windshield, Emma watched as Daniel stepped out of his car. A woman followed. Alicia. Emma's stomach twisted into knots. She had read Alicia's messages, imagined the worst, but nothing had prepared her for the sight of her husband smiling at another woman like that. He touched her arm gently, laughing at something she said, and the way he looked at her, it was soft, intimate, like he had never once looked at Emma that way in years. She felt her breath catch in her throat. This was real. The texts hadn't been exaggerated, her paranoia hadn't been unfounded. Daniel was living a double life, and now she was staring right at it. They walked inside the bar together, disappearing through the heavy doors. Emma hesitated for only a moment before making her decision. She needed to know more. Inside, the bar was dim, with low lighting and a crowd of people too lost in their own conversations to notice her. She found a seat near the back, far enough to remain unnoticed but close enough to watch them. Daniel and Alicia sat in a booth, their bodies angled toward each other in a way that screamed familiarity. Alicia reached for his hand, fingers tracing slow circles against his skin. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh. Emma felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. How long had this been going on? Had he ever felt guilty? Had he ever come home after nights like this and lied to her face, kissed her, told her he loved her while he was still thinking about her? A sharp pain twisted in her chest, but she forced herself to stay still. Not yet. Not until I know everything. She pulled out her phone, angling it carefully as she snapped a few pictures. Proof. Not just for herself, but for whatever came next. The longer she watched them, the clearer it became that this wasn't just a fling. It wasn't meaningless. There was emotion here, real, raw affection, the kind she hadn't seen in her marriage for a long time. She clutched her phone tightly, her mind spinning. Had he ever loved her at all? The next few days were unbearable. Emma went about her routine, pretending everything was normal, while inside, she was unraveling. Every touch, every glance from Daniel felt like a lie. She noticed more things now, how often he checked his phone and turned away from her when he typed, how he suddenly had urgent meetings that didn't match up with his schedule. Her paranoia grew. She started checking his real phone at night when he was asleep, searching for any sign of Alicia. But there was nothing. It was spotless. Too spotless. Daniel was careful. He had compartmentalized his life, ensuring that nothing from his affair bled into their marriage. Until one evening, when he slipped. They were having dinner, Emma forcing herself to act normal, Daniel oblivious to the fact that she knew. His phone buzzed on the table. Without thinking, he glanced at it, and for the briefest second, she caught the reflection of a name, Alicia. A name he had never mentioned in their entire marriage. His face remained neutral, unreadable, as he flipped his phone over and continued eating. Emma's blood boiled. That night, as Daniel slept beside her, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She had the proof now. She knew. But the question remained. What was she going to do with it? Confronting him wasn't enough. He would lie, gaslight, twist her words. No, she needed something bigger, something final. She thought back to Alicia's messages, the fear in them. I think they're watching me. What did that mean? Who was watching her? Emma sat up slowly, an idea forming in her mind. If Alicia was afraid, there was something more to this affair than Daniel was letting on. Maybe this wasn't just about cheating. Maybe Daniel's double life was even darker than she had imagined. Emma could feel her heartbeat in her throat as she paced the living room, gripping her phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The images she had taken of Daniel and Alicia sat on her screen like an open wound. Every time she looked at them, a fresh wave of nausea rolled over her. She had spent days preparing for this moment, rehearsing what she would say, anticipating every excuse he might throw at her. Tonight, there would be no more secrets. The sound of the garage door opening sent a jolt through her. Daniel was home. Emma took a deep breath, her hands shaking as she steadied herself. The weight of everything, the deception, the late nights, the cryptic messages, threatened to crush her. But she forced herself to stay strong. Daniel walked in, setting his keys down on the counter as he pulled off his jacket. Hey, babe, he said casually, like nothing was wrong. Emma clenched her jaw. How could he act so normal? She reached for her phone and opened the photo of him and Alicia at the bar. Without a word, she placed the screen on the counter in front of him. Daniel frowned, confused, before glancing down. The moment his eyes landed on the image, his expression shifted, just for a second. A flicker of something. Surprise, guilt, fear. But then, just as quickly, his face smoothed over into practiced indifference. What is this? He asked, his voice eerily calm. Emma crossed her arms. You tell me. Daniel exhaled, shaking his head. Jesus, Emma. Are you following me now? He let out a dry laugh, but there was an edge to it, a tension he couldn't quite hide. You think this is funny? She snapped. I found a phone in your car, Daniel. I read the messages. I saw you with her. He didn't speak right away. His jaw tightened, his fingers tapping against the counter. Then, finally, he met her gaze. Emma, I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not what you're imagining. Her stomach dropped. Not what I'm imagining. Oh, so you're telling me those messages. The ones where she says she misses you, where you talk about sneaking around, where she warns you that someone is watching. Those were all what? Taken out of context? Daniel sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. You're twisting this. Alicia is... She's just a friend. She's going through a rough time, and I was helping her, that's all. Emma let out a hollow laugh. A friend? She repeated, voice dripping with disbelief. You hold hands with all your friends? You meet them in secret? You hide their messages on a burner phone? Daniel's frustration boiled over. God, Emma, do you even hear yourself? You sound insane. You're spying on me, tracking me, going through my stuff like some paranoid psycho. Emma recoiled as if he had struck her. He was flipping it on her, trying to make her the villain in all of this. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred with rage. Don't you dare turn this around on me, she said, voice shaking. I trusted you, and you lied to me, again and again. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. You're making something out of nothing. If you don't trust me, then maybe that's the real problem here. Emma felt like the ground beneath her was crumbling. He was gaslighting her, making her question everything, making her doubt what she knew to be true. Tears burned at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Do you love her? She whispered. Daniel didn't answer right away. His silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. And then, the worst thing happened. He hesitated. Even for just a second it was enough to confirm everything she feared. Emma took a shaky step back. Wow, she whispered. You really were going to let me believe I was crazy, weren't you? Daniel clenched his jaw. I don't know what you want me to say, Emma. She shook her head, her heart breaking. I want the truth. Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Fine, yes. Alicia and we're involved. But it's not what you think. It's... Before he could finish, Emma's phone vibrated violently in her hand. A notification popped up on the screen. A message. From Alicia. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she raised the phone and read the words that made her blood turn ice cold. Stay away, or everything will fall apart. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. She looked up at Daniel, who had gone rigid, his face paling slightly as he saw the message. She wasn't the only one who had just received it. His own phone buzzed on the counter. Emma's eyes widened. What the hell is going on? She whispered. Daniel grabbed his phone quickly, turning away from her, but it was too late. She had already seen the look in his eyes. Fear, not guilt, not regret. Fear. And that was when Emma knew. This wasn't just about an affair. There was something bigger going on. And she was in the middle of it. Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the message from Alicia. Stay away, or everything will fall apart. She looked up at Daniel, her heart pounding. His face was tight with tension, his grip on his phone white-knuckled. He had read the same message, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Emma saw something in his eyes that shook her to her core. Fear. Not of her, not of getting caught. Fear of something bigger. Emma's breath hitched. Daniel, what does this mean? Her voice was barely above a whisper, but he flinched as if she had shouted. He turned away, pacing the length of the kitchen, his hands raking through his hair. Emma, you don't understand, he muttered. You weren't supposed to... Her blood ran cold. I wasn't supposed to what? She demanded. Daniel exhaled sharply, gripping the counter as if steadying himself. This isn't just about an affair, he admitted. It's more complicated than that. Emma let out a bitter laugh. Oh, really? Because it seems pretty simple to me. You cheated, you lied, and now you're terrified of whatever the hell is going on between you and Alicia. Daniel's jaw clenched. He was hesitating again, weighing his options. But Emma wasn't backing down. Tell me the truth, Daniel, all of it. Right now. He finally looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. A decision. And then the words that changed everything. Alicia isn't just my mistress. She's my handler. Emma's stomach dropped. Your what? Daniel took a deep breath. She works for people who deal in secrets. And I made a deal with them years ago. A deal I had to keep quiet. At first, it was harmless. Information exchanges, small favors, nothing dangerous. But then, it escalated. Emma's mind was spinning. Escalated how? Daniel hesitated again. They threatened you. She froze. What? His eyes darkened. I didn't tell you because I thought I could handle it. I thought if I kept them happy, kept giving them what they wanted, they'd leave you alone. But Alicia... He shook his head. She got too close. She started using our affair as leverage. I tried to end things with her, but she wouldn't let me. She said if I stopped, they'd come after you instead. Emma's entire body went numb. You expect me to believe that you were cheating on me to protect me? She said, voice shaking. That this whole time you were sleeping with her because you had to? Daniel stepped toward her, desperation in his eyes. Emma, I know how it sounds, but I swear I didn't want this. I never wanted this. She recoiled from his touch. Then why not come to me? Why not tell me instead of living this double life? Daniel's throat bobbed. Because if I told you, you'd have run, and they would have followed you. Emma sucked in a sharp breath. It wasn't just an affair. It was blackmail, manipulation, a web of deceit that stretched far beyond their marriage, and she had no idea how deep it went. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Alicia. He's lying. Meet me. I'll tell you everything. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. She turned the screen toward Daniel, watching the way his face paled. She's trying to turn you against me, he said quickly. You can't trust her. Emma laughed, hollow and broken. And I'm supposed to trust you? Daniel's face twisted in pain. Emma, please. But she had already made up her mind. Slowly, deliberately, she grabbed her keys. I need to hear the truth. All of it. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Emma, if you meet her, you won't come back the same. She looked up at him, her decision final. Maybe I don't want to. And with that, she walked out the door, leaving her husband and her old life behind. But she knew this was only the beginning.